Hi friends! Today we are putting bias binding on all the things. Sink mats, bath mats, hand towels. These items right here are going to make the best Christmas gift, the best sew and sell at all of your craft fairs. Enough talking already, let's go. For this dish mat, I chose to use my mini scallop templates, and they worked perfectly. The one thing you want to remember when you're doing a dish mat that's a little bit thicker or even a bath mat, you want to make sure that you do put your walking foot on because you're going to want to get through all of those layers. Make sure that you use bias binding whenever you are putting binding on scallops. This bias binding that I made in this buffalo check was 1 3/4 inch in width. And I folded 3/8 to a 1/2 inch in on one side and pressed it to give it a good memory crease so that when you go to flip it, everything ends up working out. This one is a seasonal dish mat that I got at Dollar General, and I absolutely think I overpaid for it, $6, because it's not that big. It's 16 by 18. I could have waited to buy this because when I went to Family Dollar, I found some fall ones that were half the price of this. They already do a binding, and it's like a nylon type binding. We're going to be getting rid of all that, so it doesn't even matter. Make sure that after this comes out of the package that you press it because there's a lot of creases in this. You're not going to lay your hot iron directly on this because this is like a microfiber. What you're going to do is just lay a scrap piece of fabric or just any fabric over top of this and then go in and just steam those creases out. And rather than lay my scallops onto the busy side, I chose to put it on the side that just had one color because it's a lot easier to see the cut mark. I chose to use my large scallops on this one. Now here's the deal with this particular size. This is more of a traditional sink mat, I think. Put this up here, you can see there's a lot more left over on this one. So this one was a different size to work on, but no worries, we're gonna make it work. To place your templates right inside of where binding is that they put, the thread binding or the nylon binding or whatever it is. You wanna come just inside of that. And then you wanna place down all your templates. You wanna make sure that this side is the same as this side. If I have a little bit of the purple peeking out here on this side, then I'm going to want to do the same on this side. The inside scallop was not going to work on this because it was going to be major big, but this is how we're going to make this work. We're going to open the template up as far as it goes inside of that binding area, and we're going to open it up all the way. We're going to take just a little ruler and just place it right along the open edge there. And then you're going to want to fill that in with your marking tool. For these dish mats, I used a regular marker because you can't get a pencil mark on there or even a heat erase pen smoothly. This is going to get cut off or hidden. I just traced along the top of that ruler, which totally filled the gap there. Then I just traced around the corners, until I had it all filled in. And you do want to clip it. I have these extra long clips here, I'll link them below, which helps you get into the templates and hold them really good. Once you have that all traced out, you're going to take your clips off, set your templates aside, and you should have something that looks like this. Next, we're just simply gonna cut on the line that we just drew. I recommend using scissors, not a rotary blade. You have way more control over where your scissors go as opposed to that rotary blade. Because remember, we're just following a line, and when you have a rotary blade, it's better to have like a ruler to go up against so that you don't make a mistake. There's not very much waste at all, friends. Not at all. Okay, take a look at our shape. Looks pretty good. Let's talk bias binding for a second. I bought this one at Walmart and I thought it would go really good with this because it's got this gingham on point design. It says that it's a 0.5 inch. Now, at first when you look at that, you're thinking, oh, well, it's only a 1/2 inch wide because that's what it says. It says 0.5 inch wide. That's not true, friends. If you were to totally open this up, this is going to be 1 3/4 inches, or a little bit more than that is what that looks like. What they do is they fold this in half and press it, and then they fold the sides in to meet just in front of that center. So they're not going all the way to the center with this. And then they fold it together, and that's what gives it a 1/2 inch bias binding. I don't usually buy bias binding. I usually make it myself, but I thought, it might be fun to do a project like this with it. It says there's 3 yards here, which I think this is going to be plenty. So if you take this and just sort of lay it around your project, you know, giving it a little bit of slack, of course. We're going to probably overlap it a little bit there. You're probably going to be at about here, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut this so this is out of our way. I don't think it's enough to do another whole one, but if you have 2 packages, you could probably get 3 of these, because you could use half of this, connect it to the other one that has a half. I'll link some of this pre-made bias binding below. Nowadays, they have tons that are so cute. So we're going to start along the longest end here. Just lay one of the edges down. You're going to open up that pre-folded and pre-creased binding to one of the sides. You want it to go right here along the edge. And since we're going to be overlapping this binding, it's going to be so easy, friends. What I want you to do is take one side and fold it down. I want you to take it and fold it over like a triangle. How you know you have it right is, you see how this comes to a point right here? The point should be pointing inward towards your project, not away from it. That's how you know you're going to get it right. Because we're going to literally start sewing here and go all the way around, and then when we go to connect it, you're just going to, you know, make sure you unfold it, and you're going to lay it and overlap it, probably about, I don't know, like an inch, 1.5 inches or so, and then you're just going to sew right on top of both those flaps, about an inch, 1.5 inches. And then when we go to fold this over, you'll see we're going to have a beautiful binding connection at the end. You're going to need some tweezers. Going to drop your needle just in front of where you see this pretty plaid bias binding. I'm going to use the edge of my presser foot as a guide. About 2.5 millimeter stitch length. Keep going, don't back stitch just yet. Wait until you get up to where that binding is, now back stitch. Okay, and now we're good to go. Everything's locked in. I use my tweezers to gently pull that bias binding into the hills and the valleys of my scallop. You just want to be really consistent. Having a knee lift is really key in this type project, because you can just continue with your hands and guide and place. Let your walking foot do all the work for you. You can see here we're coming up to the end. There's where we initially sewed and tacked that down right there. Now I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to pull this like so, set it in there. Make sure that, you know, your folds are open. Don't pull too taut and don't be too loose. It's a delicate balance. Lift up and readjust. And we're getting ready to go over it. See right there? We're going to go over that same spot that we first initially went over, the folded spot. About 1 inch or so, and then cut your threads. Okay, let me show you what this looks like. So you have this piece here. I want you to notice how that looks. See how it gives that nice slant? We know that this is going to be extra right here. I'm going to take the rest of this off right here, that excess, and you can see where I'm cutting, it's connected up to, you know, about an inch, inch and a half over. So just after that, I'm just going to go and just cut that off. Flip your sides up. Grab some glue. I'm going to put it right along here on this flap because I want this to stick to that. I'm going to marry those two together and just flop that right like so. Now when I go to fold this, I'm going to fold it at that crease, and then I'm going to put it right over top, and then you can just pop a clip there. So you can see there, that is going to be a very nice end to our binding. What you can do is go through and just make sure that all your fold is over. I don't know that you necessarily have to clip it down every time. I mean, definitely at the part where you mitered those two pieces together, right? On the thicker ones, I'm going to tell you, yes, go ahead and clip your binding down for this next step. But on these thin mats, these are so thin. I mean, I think you're fine not to clip. I'm going to place my needle right along the edge of this bind. Needle down, back stitch. So you're just going to follow along that edge, pulling this not too tight, but you don't want any gaps in here. You don't want any air. And if your edge of your binding gets caught up in there, just lift up and just put it back down, because you don't want it to be rippled up or anything like that. I'm just going to follow along just like you would if it was a quilt. Make sure that you end right on top of that last stitch though. That's important because then nobody will see where you started and stopped. I would even go past just a few stitches and then back stitch a couple and then break thread. Oh my word, look how cute. Oh my goodness, friends. I just transformed this, right? Look at how cute. And you can see the back where that secondary line is just in front of the gingham there. So cute and so functional. For this sink mat, I've decided that I'm going to keep it square and show you how to just put mitered corners on a square sink mat. Now you can do this to the bath mats too if you choose. I'm going to also use the pre-made bias binding. You really don't need bias binding if you're just doing straight edges. So keep that in mind if you want to use a pretty fabric that you don't have a lot of, that you want to use up. You can use, any which way it goes fabric. Now, if you were doing a quilt though, of course, I would suggest that you at least go cross grain with your strips for your binding, but for this, it doesn't matter. I'm also going to leave this nylon binding that they initially put on. There's no need for us to take it off because we're just going to be squaring off the edges. This again is the double fold extra wide bias tape. This is what it looks like. It's the same as the red gingham check that we used. It's about 1 3/4 folded in, pressed, and then folded again, and that gives it that 1/2 inch. Real cute daisy. I got this one at Walmart too. We're going to be starting on a side, just like we did when we did the scalloped Christmas one. Just kind of lay it out and guesstimate, eyeball, on how much you're going to need. So I'm going to probably cut about right there. So I'm just, going over a few inches here. And then again, you have, some left over. And if you buy 2 packs, you can probably get 3-ish out of this. This one's going to be so fast, friends. You want to flip it to the back. So if you're going to feed it through your machine this way, I know you're looking at it backwards, but imagine where I'm sitting in my sewing machine, is off to this side over here. I'm going to be putting it in this way. So that tells me that that initial piece has to start on this side. It won't work if I go this way, say, and start over here. What if I started over here? Do you see what would happen? All this would be underneath my arm of my sewing machine, and that's not where I want it. So flip it this way. Make sure that you open everything up. I'm just going to set this up to the very edge here. And I'm going to clip this for just a second. Now remember what we did on the scalloped one. You're going to take this corner here and fold it down at a 45-degree angle. Just like that. Now you can put a press in there if you like. It's up to you. Maybe I will. Let me go. I'm going to put a press in this right now. I think that's going to help you. So line this up along the edge here. And I've pressed that down. Remember how I said you can tell if you have it right or wrong is if this point is facing toward the inside of your project. If it was facing outward, it would be wrong. So this is turned down and this point is facing in toward, your project. And then I'm just going to clip it. Now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine. So I'm going to start sewing just in front of that. Go here about a 1/4 inch, or you can use the line as your guide. It's up to you. Go here, make sure that you backstitch though, and then follow all the way around, and we're going to do a mitered corner. Grab your tweezers to help you. I'm going to use the edge of my presser foot here, my walking foot, and you can see I still have my walking foot on here because this is still thick. You want to totally use that because that's going to help you get through this without any skip stitches at all. I'm going to drop my presser foot and I'm going to start sewing. I'm not going to backstitch just yet. I'll go a little bit and then I'm going to backstitch. And now I'm going to come right on top of that fabric. And I'm just, starting at the very beginning. It doesn't get any simpler than that, friends. Use your tweezers to kind of open that fold up and lay it down. You're not pulling. Again, you're using about a 2.5 millimeter stitch length. When you get up to the end here, you're going to stop about right there where that bind that they initially put on here from the manufacturer. You're going to stop essentially a 1/4 inch from the end with your needle down at first. Stop with your needle down, lift your presser foot, turn your mat so that the V shape is coming towards you. Drop your presser foot, and then you're going to sew right off the end and break thread. See how that went boom and boom. See that? Okay. Now you're going to lift your binding, make sure it's open, up and over. The trick here is to get this bind nice and straight and flush with this whole area right here. So you want this to be one straight line. That's how it's going to stay nice and neat and look nice and neat. Once that is straight, then you're going to take this side and then lift it straight over onto itself. Need to make sure that that's open. It's not wanting to stay open for me. And you can see there right along the edge, this is the fold right here where I folded it back onto itself. Pop a clip in there just to hold that for, just a second here until you can get your bearings and get it back underneath your needle. This needs to be lined up along here. Now you're going to flip your project and you're going to put your needle right here, about a 1/4 inch in or on that line if you're following that crease mark. Which that crease mark is approximately a 1/4 inch, so you're good if you follow it. I'm going to come a couple stitches in and I'm going to back stitch right there too, because you want to make sure that that does not come apart. Now you just want to continue sewing. do this on all 4 corners, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to close this up. Okay, friends, here's where I'm at. I'm coming up to where we started right here. And look at that. I cut off just enough. You want to go over about 1.5 inches past this with this piece here. Friends, you're just laying this right on top of this. We're not doing anything technical here. It's just that simple. Just lay it right on top, and then you're just going to continue sewing right over top of that. And in my case, I'm going to go all the way here to the end of this. That's about what I needed to finish up the binding on this. Normally I would have to cut off a little bit, but I don't think I'm going to cut off any because it's just enough. So I'm going to continue sewing. When I get to the end there, I'm going to break thread. And you can see here what this looks like. Okay, now when we look at this area here, when you unfold all that, look at how nice that angle is there. And no one's going to even know. And you can go through with your hand sewing needle if you want and just close it up, you know, the gap. I don't think you're going to need to do any of it because it's just a dish mat, friends. I mean, it's not a big deal. Take your glue stick and add some glue onto the edge here where the point is. And here you're going to marry those two together just long enough so that you can put it back underneath your sewing machine and sew it all together. But make sure that this is unfolded there because you want to make sure you catch it all. I'm going to just take and lay this down over top. Oh, it wants to fold up on me. Oh, would help if I unclip that, right? So you're just going to marry those two pieces together with some glue for the moment. Look at that, friends. So nice, right? Now we're going to flip it over. Now you're going to take that first fold that you had there, and you're going to fold that inward, and then you're going to flip it over like so. Just like that. And now you're going to just flip this over, the corners. Now with the corners, what you want to do is so that you don't have bulk at your corners, you can see where the opening is on this side. You want the opening to be on the other side, on the opposite side, on the front. So just be mindful of that. Fold in here, and then bring this over to here. And you'll just want to clip that. Let me grab a pin because I don't have any more clips over here. Just like so. And you can see right here, the opening's going to be on that side and the opening's over here on that side. And that takes out all the bulk out of the corner. We're going to flip this over. Make sure that fold is under there. Take this side, fold it. And you can see where my crease is off because I didn't sew a full 1/4 inch. I followed the side of my presser foot. So if you follow that line, you're going to follow a real true 1/4 inch. Mine's more of a scant. You're going to pin those down on all 4 sides, and then you are going to continue sewing. When we sew onto the front now, you always want to start where you mitered those two together, where we folded that 45-degree angle. Unclip that. I'm going to come in and place my needle right on the fold of that fabric. Make sure you backstitch. If it starts to roll up under your presser foot, lift up and lay it back down. So you really want to, pay attention to that. Otherwise, you're going to lose the fold, into a sewn crease, and you don't want that. You're going to stop. Now, you could keep going and pivot if you want, but I'm going to make one of those little decorative corners. I'm gonna go up one side, stop, pivot, go a couple inches over, or a couple inches, no, you know what I mean, a couple stitches, I mean, not inches. Then pivot it towards you, put your sewing foot back down. Oh, I don't think I made it straight, friends. Oh, well. I mean, it's just a sink mat, but, you know, this is great practice for any of my friends out there who just, you know, really want to get involved into quilting or putting binding on. So you can see the end right here. This is where we glued those two pieces together. If you're worried about this opening right here, see that? I mean, it still has some glue on it. So you're just going to drop your needle here. Make sure your presser foot's down there. And just follow that V shape. I mean, it's a mat for the sink, so I don't think it's going to be that unprofessional looking. I mean, they're so cute with these bindings on them. I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to notice. That's just me. So you can see that there. And then if you want to go ahead and stitch this that way you can, but I don't think you're going to need to. I think that's going to be sufficient. I really do. Look how cute, friends. Oh my goodness. Even this one's cute. And there's the back. And you can see that indentation. That looks kind of cool all the way around. Yeah, so cute. This one is a very thick bath mat. You know, for like when you get out of the shower, this is what you would step on. It is really thick and it has like memory foam in it. For this one, I'm using this real cute black gingham check that I bought pre-made at Walmart. Same size as the other ones. This one though, I'm going to try and follow the fold mark here, which is the true 1/4 inch. So I'm coming in a little bit. I'm just taking my time because if you go too fast, you may skip some stitches. What makes this particular bath mat unique is it has curved corners. And I'm going to show you how I get around these curves. It's not too bad. And I'm leaving the binding on there, which honestly, that's, you know, one less step you got to do. We don't have to cut it off at all. Now you're just going to continue laying down the edge of that binding to the edge of that bath mat binding. And you're just going to slowly work your way around. You're going to pivot your bath mat as you go because we want to work into the curve. We don't, you know, want to keep going straight. It's a curve. So I'm going to pull out with my, hopefully you can see that. I don't know if you can see that. Take my tweezers and pull this out toward that edge. And with this finger, I'm going to kind of push that away so I don't, you know, get anything caught in there. I'm going to sew a little bit, lift up, pivot just ever so slightly, maybe lift up using your knee lift and pull this out toward that rounded edge. Doing this, you don't have to worry about any miters. And then you just continue on and close it up just like we did the other ones where we glue it and then fold it over and maybe sew that gap if you want. Yeah, that's it. So simple, friends. I want you to note that this mat is a little bit harder to push through because it has this sticky on the back because it's a bathroom mat. So what I'm doing is kind of holding it here on this end, back here, and here. This way I'm helping it both ways to feed it through. If you don't do that, then you're going to have a lot of jagged stitching, friends. And when you come up here to the curve, just watch how I do. Don't go real fast. Stop, lift, pivot just ever so slightly, and then go back to holding this here. If you don't kind of lift it upwards, it will stick. I'm telling you. You've been warned. Oh, this is a cute one. Oh my goodness. Here's the bath mat. Oh, it's so cute with that black gingham around it. And it was not hard to do at all, friends. You just go around those corners. Here's the back. Oh yeah, so cute, friends. Think about customizing this for the person who has everything and they love to have like matchy-matchy in the bathroom. You could do a whole set. You could do towels and bath mat and everything. Oh yeah, cute. This is how many I've made so far, friends. I think I'm on a roll. So let's get on to making the hand towel for the bathroom. It's gonna be cute. Since the towel I'm using is made out of 100% cotton, I did pre-wash and pre-dry this because I don't want any surprises in the end. This is, of course, the back, and then this would be the front. So I pressed this after it came out of the dryer, and I can see that it kind of narrows up this way with its own original binding on it. So when I pressed it, I made it hot, and then I would kind of stretch the fibers so that it pulled out to be more even until I can, you know, get everything on here, my marks, and cut it. Then fold this in half to find the middle down here. Now you can see here, these are not totally even. So you want to make sure that you line those up so when you're looking at it, you know, it's not going to look off, right? I mean, they mass produce these things, so they're like probably whatever. You're going to take your heat erasable pen and just mark right there. This one does take a pen mark pretty good. So I don't know if you have to use marker, though you can. It will be covered, but I would go for anything heat erasable at this point because you're going to be using your hands and face maybe on this or whatever. Open it back up after you found the middle. Then you're going to take the visual templates in the basic. And I realized right away that I was going to need 3 approximately because we're only going from edge to edge. We don't need any corners for this one because it's a hand towel. I closed them up tightly all together, and then I folded it like this because this color code is if you had another one connected here. So if you line up this edge right here to that edge, like so, then you can find the actual center of this. And so I just press lightly right there because these templates are reusable, and I didn't want to press too hard. I can always iron them back out. So I'm going to line up that crease with that mark right there. And I'm going to be mindful as to where this straight edge is along here because when they manufactured it, it was a little wonky. But as long as I keep that here, then I know that this curve is going to be in the center. Take this, and you see right here where that original binding was right there. You just want to come up on that a little bit because we're going to end up cutting all this out. And that it's just barely coming up over top of where you can see the binding end, the original binding. Clip it. Then you're going to come in with your marking tool, and then you're just going to mark. And here you're just going right to here, right there, right where it ends. And once everything is marked, then you can unclip. Perfect scallop. Now we're going to cut this one, and then we're going to transfer these cut marks onto the other side. Again, you're going to use scissors because we have more control with scissors than we do a rotary blade at this point. Not much waste at all, friends. Look Look at that. Oh my goodness, it's perfect every time. Let's cut this tag off. We don't want that. We're gonna first find the center. In this one, we don't have to really fudge too much because there's no decorative lines there, so yeah. We want to come down because we don't want this thick binding in there. And when we lift this up, the center mark, I can still see it a little bit right there. So that's perfect. Line it up so that it clears this. You can pop some clips. And then you're just going to simply follow this cut line. And when you have that all drawn out, lift it up and then just cut it off. And there's the waist on that. Not much at all. I don't know about you all, but in my neck of the woods, come wintertime, this is what we see nonstop. So that's what I'm putting on my towel. This is the front side right here, and this is the back. You can tell the back because this binding is flipped over this way. So we're gonna start on the back here, and this is how I decided to hide all this over here when it comes to this binding. 1 3/4 inch binding. One of the folds has been folded up about 1/2 inch. Okay friends, Tracy from the future here. I was totally overthinking the end pieces here on this scallop, so I'm popping in here, getting rid of that old footage and giving you this on how to close the end here and the end over there. You're going to do the same thing on this end as you are over here. When you first place your binding down, you're going to leave about 1 1/4 inch or so hanging off there. And then you're just going to continue to sew just like you normally would with 1/4 inch. So then what you're going to do, so say this is all the way done, you're then going to fold this like so, and then put this fold like that because that's the crease that you made in your fabric. Lift it up and over, and then that's how you're going to stitch that back down. I mean, friends, I was totally overthinking that. Only thing that you really want to make sure of here, push that out just a little bit so the fold hangs over a little bit when you first fold this piece over, because what happens is when you go over to the front of the project, like right here, and you fold it and you go over, you want to make sure that you cover all of the towel on this end. And I'm just following my presser foot edge. With this curve, this is the basic one. You know, it's like the rest of them. You just follow the curves and place the edge of the fabric right where you need it to go, and then just follow the curve. You just don't want to shove it in there straight because you're not going to get a beautiful shape on the end. Okay, let's get this under here and sew this puppy. Now we're looking at the front. I'm pressing this all down nice with my fingers. Make sure that that fold is in there and that you're giving it that natural curve that it wants to do. Do a couple back stitches there. And then you're just going to come along that edge. Oh my goodness, it's so cute. Oh friends, look at how darling. Okay, so I'm going to do the other side of this, the other end. And I had just thought possibly, you know, you may want to fussy cut some kind of a Christmas picture or winter picture, and you can, you know, just kind of sew a strip of fabric down and just tuck the edges in and have it along here too. Or you could also do another band of this right here, straight across here, giving it yet another different look. Okay, friends, I have to put something here because I just thought that is just too cute not to do, right? So all I did was take 1 3/4 inch of some of the leftover strip that I had from this, And then I folded it in half, and then I just folded these, meeting them in the center, and pressed it. All I did here, friends, this is so simple. You just take it, fold it in, and then in, and then in. That's it. And press that. Now I'm going to lay it right here in the center, but I'm going to glue it down so that way it stays in place for me long enough for me to sew it. And I'm just going to top stitch it. I'm not going to wrap it to the back though. I'm just coming right up to this binding area. I don't know if you can see, I'm leaving just a hair there. And you just have to make sure though that you are even all the way down, because you know you don't want it to be wonky. I'm just going to cut the excess here, lift this up, fold it in like so. I think, is that it? A little bit more. Let me cut a little bit more of that off. Then fold in and fold in. And then when I go to top stitch this area right here, I'm just going to make sure that that is tucked in, just like this. So all I'm going to do is probably, I'll start somewhere here. Do a top stitch, go here, here, boxing it in, so to speak. And that's all I'm going to do. Look at how cute that this turned out. And can you just imagine that it's, hanging in your bathroom, just waiting for someone to dry their hands off in the winter or Christmas or whenever. Binding just makes everything better, right? Help me brainstorm down in the comments. What more could we put binding on? I have used it on regular towels for using those as bath mats, so to speak. But I started thinking, what else could we possibly bind? How about those hooded towels for our grandkids with like their favorite character around it and the binding? How about we take some of those washcloths for like the sink in the kitchen where we wash dishes? We could bind those. So many things that we could bind. Tell me in the comments, what else can we use binding on? Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.